Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I thought that it might be really fun to do a type of story time video. So today I'm going to tell you the story about how I ended up living with a butterfly for 3 months. So throughout the story I'm going to pop up pictures and videos right here to go along with what I'm saying to give you guys a little more detail into the story. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So this story takes place while I was in college. It was my second year, I believe. It was October. So basically I was walking home from class one day and I never followed like normal pathways. Like I was always cutting through grassy areas or through living areas. And one of these areas happened to be right through the middle of a living community on campus called San Raf. And as I was cutting across the grass, I noticed that there was a butterfly flopping around. And I bent down to see what was up because I'm very into animals, insects, like literally every living thing. So I bent down to see why it was flopping around like that, and I noticed that it had a broken wing. This type of broken wing though was a lot different from other types that I had seen before. So normally when a butterfly's wing is broken, it's like the wing is here and it's chipped off from a corner somewhere, but this wing was broken near the base, so near the body of the butterfly. So it was kind of dangling off, about to fall off, but not quite there. I don't really know the internals of a butterfly, but there was some like black oozing stuff, which I assumed was like its body fluids coming out a little bit. Either way, so I love butterflies, so I let it crawl up onto my finger. It seemed like it really wanted to live, and since it was October and since it was late afternoon, I knew that if I left it there, it would definitely die. If not by the cold, then by some sort of predator. So I decided to take it to my room and just see what I could do. So I brought the butterfly to my room and I went down to the dining commons and grabbed some, I think it was an orange, a kiwi, any sort of fruit. I did some like really quick research online to see what they liked, and people were saying citrus and stuff like that. So I brought up a bunch of fruit and I put the fruit in a pot, and then I put the butterfly on the fruit and watched to see which one it would crawl to. It didn't really have a preference. But basically that was just like a little temporary setup, and the butterfly sat there while I figured out some sort of temporary setup that I could create for it while it was staying in my room, because obviously I can't just have like a loose creature in my room. I don't want to crush it, I don't want it to get lost, or I don't know, you know what I mean? So I took the cardboard off of one of those Trader Joe's 24-pack bottles of water, and then I took a laundry net, so the kind that you would put like your delicates in. And so basically I put the cardboard in the net, so there was a zipper, there was a net, it was breathable, and I took a washcloth as well because I noticed that this butterfly liked to cling to things like towels, and I pinned the washcloth onto the cardboard inside the net and propped it up against my wall so it had some sort of wall to cling to. And that is basically where that butterfly lived whenever he was in my room. Unless I was there, I would usually take him out and let him crawl along the walls, or we would go outside a lot. When I had this butterfly, I would go outside a lot, at least once a day, and take it out into the sunshine, put it on some plants and stuff. But yeah, anyway, so that was where I kept it while it was in my room. The next step for me is I had to figure out how to feed this thing. So I did a lot more research and I ended up landing on sugar water for the time being. So I went to our local co-op and I bought some organic, I think it was brown sugar, and then I would mix it with the Trader Joe's spring water and I would place it in a little bottle cap, and the butterfly would drink out of that. And this ended up actually being the staple for his diet. And I say his because I researched even further and I figured out that this was a male monarch butterfly. I already knew that it was a monarch, but I didn't know how to tell male versus female. And the way to tell is that males have 2 dots at the bottom of their wings, as you can see here. And so I knew it was a male, I knew how to feed it kind of, and I had some sort of enclosure for him to live in while he stayed with me. Anyway, about a week went by and I wanted to name him, but I didn't really want to give him sort of like a pet name or a human name or anything like funny. I don't know why, it just didn't feel right. He was like a wild animal. I wasn't trying to keep him as a pet, I was just trying to help him stay alive. So I was thinking of like a lot of really weird sounding just like random names, like Fluffa. I don't even know, like I was just like, what is something that captured his essence? And I don't know, one day the word Java just appeared in my mind. I was just like, oh, Java. Yeah, like the computer thing, or like a cup of coffee. I don't know why, but I ended up going with Java and it fit fit him perfectly. So that is how Java ended up getting his name, and within the next few weeks we really bonded. I'm not exactly sure how, and by bonded I mean he could kind of tell who I was versus someone else. It's almost as though he knew my scent. I don't know if butterflies can pick up on stuff like that, like cats and dogs can, but he really seemed to kind of know when it was me who he was around versus someone else. Like if my finger was in front of him for him to climb onto, he would hop on instantly, but if my friend put their finger out, he usually wouldn't hop on, or he might hesitate or have to be nudged on or something. So that was really interesting, and also I got to understand when he was hungry versus tired versus when he wanted to fly. And that was a hurdle that we had to kind of get over because Java's wing was broken and he couldn't fly. So I kind of figured out that while he couldn't fly upwards, he was able to fly downwards. So if I had him on my hand and I moved my hand as a kind of head start for him, he was able to hop off and flutter down to the ground and not just like completely fall and sink. So that is what I would call his flight practice, and we would do that multiple times a day just to keep him feeling like he could fly, like he was leading a normal life for a butterfly, and you know, just to keep his overall strength up, I guess. So yeah, there's actually one video where it kind of shows how we would do flight practice. It's like a mini version. He's not flying too far, but it also shows how we were kind of connected. I don't really know how to explain it. You just kind of have to watch for yourself, but he always flies back down to me. So yeah, I'll insert that right here. It's kind of a longer video, so feel free to skip ahead if you don't want to watch it, but that'll be right here. Anyway, so a typical day for us would just be, you know, me doing my normal things, going to class, leaving him inside of that net thing while I was gone, coming home, taking him out, taking him outside, feeding him, doing some flight practice, and that's kind of how I spent my free time for those 3 months. And then, of course, since it was October, we ran across new hurdles: Thanksgiving and winter break. So I didn't have a car in college. Like, I didn't have one at school with me. So I would either have to ride share home or take the Amtrak train. And that train ride is about 10 hours long from Santa Barbara to Berkeley. And ride share would take about 5 hours. So either way, that is a long time to have a butterfly with you and doing okay. So for those 2 breaks, I ended up taking Amtrak both times. So he was on that train 4 times, once there and back, and then another time there and back for both breaks. So that was about 40 hours of him on a train, and those were some really interesting rides. Here's actually some footage of us waiting at Amtrak for the train to come. Always a good time. So the first fun step of getting this butterfly on the train is that I don't think you're allowed to bring things like butterflies on this train. So I took one of those metal pencil holders. It's like a cone sort of cup, and it has sort of like a fishnet design. So there are little squares that are basically air holes. So what I would do is tie a fabric on top of the rim so that he couldn't get out, and I would flip it upside down, and he would stay inside this little pencil holder while I smuggled him onto the train. I would keep it inside my big coat, and then once we were on the train, I would take it out, obviously, but I wouldn't take him out of the holder unless he needed to eat eat, or unless we went to the observation car where he could flutter around a bit, and you'll see that in all these clips here. So yeah, the train rides are pretty interesting, and like I mentioned in my 10 facts about me video, people on the train would notice him. He often sat on my sweater, so they would often think he was a brooch, and they would be like, oh, what a pretty brooch, like it's so cool, and I'd be like, thank you, thank you. And then he would move every once in a while, and they'd be like, oh my gosh, it's animated, and I was like, no, it's a butterfly. So that led to some pretty interesting conversations. People wanted to see him, touch him, hold him, but of course I didn't really want that for him. So typically I let him maybe crawl on one or two people, and I told them obviously, like, don't pet his wings, like don't touch anything else. If he wants to hop on you, he will. If not, I'm not gonna force him to. So yeah, those train rides were honestly pretty tiring for me because I felt like I couldn't ever really take a nap. I always had to make sure that no one was taking the pencil case, seeing it and reporting it, or, you know, if he was out and about, like in the observation car, if he was on my shirt fluttering down to the floor, that I wasn't stepping on him or anybody else was stepping on him. So it was very much like being a parent. I always had to keep my watch on him. But yeah, so after train rides I would get home and my parents got to meet him and they were obsessed. Here's a cute little video of him on my mom's hand, my dad just snapping photos left and right. And at home what I would do is I took an old sort of college dorm style laundry basket and I would flip it upside down, and it was like one big huge net that he could stay in. I pinned a washcloth again on the side for him to cling to. I put some towels on the floor, and I had some flowers and plants at the bottom that he could crawl on. And this is how he would live with us during breaks. What was really fun about this actually is that Java was present for things like Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. I'll insert all those clips right here. And yeah, I mean, he really became part of the family. During winter break as well, Java actually traveled even further because he traveled from Santa Barbara to Berkeley with me. And then my family and I ended up traveling to Monterey, specifically Pacific Grove, and he road tripped with us. So here's some footage of that. We stayed in a hotel with him, and we stopped by a butterfly sanctuary actually, so that he was able to kind of hang out with other monarch butterflies. Some of them were caged, so he would hang out on the bars, but there was also a pathway that you could walk throughout this grove that was literally out in the open, and there were hundreds of monarchs just flying around. And even though he couldn't fly up, and they obviously wouldn't really fly down to humans, I feel like he liked the area. Like, he could sense the energy. Maybe he could see the other butterflies, like, I'm not sure, but I liked bringing him around his own kind just to give him that experience. But yeah, so breaks were really fun. The only stressful part really came from the train rides because you never know what would happen, and I was always hoping that I'd be able to make it home without anything going wrong, anyone reporting him, or any sort of harm. So once we were back from both breaks, it had been a solid 2 months, I think, maybe a little over 2 months, and he started to have some more issues. At one point he was walking up my arm and he flapped his wings a little too hard, and the wing that was already on its last hinge ripped even further off, and I knew that if I didn't do anything he would completely lose that wing. He was not able to fly down anymore or fly at all, so that really made me sad. I didn't know how to fix that for him. Like I said, most times when a butterfly's wing is broken, it's usually the wing itself, not like where it's connected, so you can easily fix that with some special kind of glue or a prosthetic or some sort of thing, but I couldn't really glue his wing onto his body because that could be toxic. So I made the decision that because he couldn't really fly anymore, it didn't really matter how I positioned the wing, if that makes sense. It will in a second when I tell you what I did. But obviously I didn't want to take the wing off or have it fall off. That's just kind of like inhumane. So what I did is I took the bottom of the top wing, which was hanging off, and I glued it to the bottom wing. So normally they need those separate in order to fly, but that wasn't really possible anymore, and he couldn't fly anyway, is what my point was earlier. So I kind of glued those together in order to keep his wing in place. I didn't know if like losing a wing would kill him or something, so I just wanted to kind of keep it where it was. After that, he was not able to fly anymore, obviously. So in order to glue those wings, I had to perform a type of surgery, if you will. So I did a lot of research on this because I was terrified of accidentally killing him. So what I found out is that in order to fix a wing, it's easiest when you can flip the butterfly upside down and kind of pin them down with an object. You obviously can't squish the body of the butterfly itself, and you need access to the wings, so basically you have to figure out how to put something around the body and just hold that area down. So what I used was a pair of scissors, like the loop where you put your finger through. Most people that end up doing some type of butterfly surgery actually end up using a clothing hanger, but the scissors worked perfect for me. So yeah, I pinned him down with those, and then I realized that he was just too active. He was moving too much. I didn't want to mess up in any way, and he seemed stressed out. So I Googled how to calm down a butterfly, or at least get them to be a little more lethargic. And what the internet said was you have to put it in a cold place, for example, a freezer. So here's where it got tricky for me. The internet said that if you keep them in there for too long, you can slow down all their bodily functions to the point where they literally stop and the butterfly dies. So I was terrified to do this. I decided to put him in the fridge first and just see what that would do. Didn't work at all. So I ended up having to put him in the freezer. I don't remember how many minutes, but it was not very long. And when I took him out, yeah, he was moving relatively slower. I was really concerned for a second. It wasn't like he was not moving, but I didn't know what kind of effect that had on him. But I flipped him upside down. I put the loop of the scissors back on him, and everything went perfectly fine. You can see in the clip his legs are moving. So yeah, with my research, I also learned that the wings of a butterfly are very comparable to hair on humans. So if you cut them or they break off or something, they don't really feel it. It's like when you cut your hair or your nails or something. So with that information in mind, I didn't have any ingredients of any other type of glue that I could create for these wings. So with the knowledge that I had, I decided that I was going to use an all-natural type of eyelash glue, since that's stuff that you might put on your skin and it touches your lashes, which are a type of hair, and it never really damages my lashes when I pull it off. So I used that to glue his wings together, and it worked perfectly. It didn't like burn through his wing like a chemical product might. So that was good. There were a few instances of trial and error where I thought that the glue had dried and it hadn't, so I removed the scissors and he would flap and his wings would come apart again. So it took a little while, but eventually I got it down, and once I removed the scissors for the last time, his wings were sealed together. So that is how he lived for the rest of his time. And of course I still tried to do flight training with him to see if there was any way that he could still fly after that, or if he could relearn how to fly, but it didn't really end up working after that injury and after the surgery. So yeah, but despite that, he still led a relatively happy life, I think. Obviously I can't like speak for him. I don't really know what that experience was for him, but he stayed alive for another month, which makes about 3 months, which is longer than the normal lifespan of a monarch butterfly. So I'm very proud of having been able to keep him alive for that long, and it was just amazing to live with a butterfly like that. And so the end ended up coming one night when I was feeding him. Also, I probably should have mentioned that throughout our time together, I would notice signs of him deteriorating. So little bits and pieces of his wing might fall off a little bit, or part of his foot would actually break. It happened naturally. It was just kind of like when we age, you know, our hair turns gray, or we lose hair, or our bones become more brittle. So there were signs of him deteriorating, and one of the things that he would do is he would take his foot and pull it into him a lot near the end. And you know, when bugs die, their legs are often drawn in. So I knew that that was a sign of him aging. And by the end, it was one night when I was feeding him dinner in my room at college, and he was eating and started pulling in all of his legs. Normally it was one at a time or even two, but now it was all of them. And I just got a sense that this was it. So when he stopped eating, which might I add was a very short eating time, like he did not eat a lot, which I also knew was a sign he didn't really want to eat, I took him off of his little eating area that I had him at, and I lay down in bed and I put him right here on my chest, on my skin, and I let him lay there while I sat there. I kind of talked to him. I said, thank you for being like my friend for these last 3 months. I hope I did good by you. He was part of me. Like, it really hurt. I cried a little bit. Actually, I cried a lot. But yeah, so I had him lay there until he was basically dead, but I'm not really sure if he was. You know, even when things stop moving, there are like little twitches. It could be nerves or it could still be life. I wasn't sure, but at a certain point, it was late. It was like 3 in the morning, I think. I had to go to sleep for my class the next day. So I ended up putting him along this shelf area that I had next to my bed. I put him on a little washcloth. I laid him down and I let him sleep next to me that night, and in the morning he was officially gone. So that was the end of that. It was a really hard week for me after that, because obviously when you dedicate your life so strongly and passionately to one thing that becomes like a routine for you every day, it's hard for that to change, especially when it's a living thing and you cared for it and it was like your little child. So yeah, but eventually I've gotten better. Anyway, that is the story of Java, the monarch butterfly that lived with me for about 3 months. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked it, make sure to give it a like and subscribe if you want to see more. Also, if you want to see more of me, you can follow me on Instagram at Annika_Helmer. And with that, I will sign off, but I will include some more pictures and videos at the end here for you guys to watch if you want to. But anyway, I love you guys lots. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day or night wherever you are.